Arrowhead dropped in two pieces of news yesterday, but for many in the community, both did nothing to address the more pressing and immediate issues, instead offering up paid content, leading to blowback from the player base and accusations aimed at the studio for being tone deaf. Here it all comes as we dive into the latest from Helldivers. So, I know a lot happened yesterday in and around Helldivers 2, and now that it's had time to settle, let's swing back around and kind of take stock of what we got yesterday, in terms of what Arrowhead said. But I also wanted to dive more into the details because, full disclosure here, I was putting together pieces of yesterday's video in between tons of IRL meetings, and it was kind of a heavy news-driven video. But now that I've had time to review it all over a couple of times, along with, of course, all of your feedback, there's a lot to sort through here. First up was that announcement that Arrowhead had outsourced the Upscaler implementation to Nixies and that it would be coming out on May 27th. And for those of you who are not familiar with Nixies, they've now done quite a bit of work for Arrowhead, like the slim PC version conversion, and they also seem to be working in the background right now with easy anti-cheat. And again, here they are with the Upscaler support. Now, if you want a more thorough breakdown on it all, check out my video from yesterday where I go into a lot more detail. But, just to kind of give you the TLDR version here, next week, PC will be getting either FSR 4.0.3, which is the high-end version, or FSR 3.1.5. NVIDIA users will see DLSS 4.5, and Intel will receive XeSS 3.0, while PS5 Pro is getting PSSR 1, and finally, standard PS5 and Xbox will see FSR 3.1. However, one key detail I missed here, which I saw mentioned in many of my comments, is that for PS5 Pro, it's the older PSSR 1 that Helldivers is getting and not the newer PSSR 2 implementation. Now, I'm not a PS5 owner, as I main 100% a PC, but from what I can tell, PSSR 2 uses a new algorithm to improve motion clarity while also reducing artifacts seen on objects with finer detail. And just to kind of give you a comparison of the two, here's the latest Ghost game showing an image caught in PSSR 1 and now PSSR 2. Now, I honestly don't know why Nixies is bringing in the older version of PSSR. Maybe it's got something to do with Helldivers engine. Again, I don't know, and they haven't said anything to let us know why, but you would think that for a game like Helldivers, where players are constantly in motion, you'd want the best possible version of PSSR, which is designed to improve motion clarity. But by far, the biggest news yesterday was the upcoming Warhammer 40K Helldivers 2 partnership, and man, did this set it off again inside our community. Now, I saw the announcement trailer drop and added it onto yesterday's video, and I had something like 10 minutes to spare before my next meeting, so I just kind of flung it in there haphazardly without a lot of thoughts on my side, although I did say this right towards the end of that video. Also, I've already started seeing your comments and receiving your DMs saying that if Arrowhead just rolled out 40K as a collab, things must have gotten really bad over at the studio after Exo Experts and all those negative reviews they received. And since I really didn't have time to work through and edit anything substantial about that Warbond reveal, and since the Helldivers community has definitely been making its feelings known ever since that reveal happened, let's now combo the two together right here, right now. So first off, my Warhammer knowledge comes from about 300 hours spent in Space Marine 2. So, when it comes to the weapons, the chapters, and the insanely detailed and expansive lore of the 40K universe, let's just say that there are people out there that know it all and have it memorized to a T. I'm not one of them. So, when it comes to armor and weapons and what could or should be included in this upcoming Warbond, I'm going to leave that for others to debate. But by and large, the community right now is pretty heated and staying pretty vocal about what went down yesterday. Like this post I found over on the Unfiltered Reddit, where we've got the guy from the Flex Tape commercial along with this giant vat of water that represents everything wrong with the game right now. You've got balance issues, weak weapons, broken mechs, no new missions or content, only Warbonds, and it's all just leaking out of this giant vat of water, and the guy with the Arrowhead logo over him then slaps the flex tape over the massive leaking hole to stop it, with the band-aid being the Warhammer 40k Legendary Warbond. Here's another one I found with a person just jingling the keys, saying this is Arrowhead right now, along with a caption that says, "Consume Warbond and be excited for next Warbond." And yeah, trust me, I get it. So right now, here's kind of the things that really stuck out about that 40k announcement yesterday, at least to me, starting off with the announcement itself, which was an announcement for the announcement of the announcement. Now, we'll touch on the timing of their trailer, but for now, let's call it for what it is and what it was, a reveal for the reveal. Now, yes, I know that the official Warhammer stream was actually going on just before we got this Helldivers official trailer, and on that Warhammer stream, they were actually the first to announce this HD2 40k collaboration. But, you know, I know for a lot of people, they saw this trailer and they were like, what? That must have been put together a few hours before they actually released this video, because for sheer substance alone, you could arguably give the Helldivers announcement a 0 out of 10 and probably not get any pushback from anywhere. Now, outside of the mention that it's coming later this year, which was a long time, there was nothing here for Helldivers to really connect with. Game director Mikhail narrated the entire video, which to be honest sounded more like a new player onboarding advertisement, at least to me. I mean, he talked about what Helldivers is, what the game is about, and more, almost like, you know, it was meant for a trailer from a long time ago when nobody really knew what Helldivers 2 was, and Arrowhead kind of had that B-roll sitting around, and they decided, hey, we might as well use it for this Warhammer announcement. There was also no, and I mean zero, concept art. There were no sneak peeks or anything to do with Helldivers shown off and say like Cadian armor, maybe with some las guns, just nada. Really the only thing we did see that had to do with Warhammer are some of the devs sitting around painting miniatures. Now, circling back to the question that I know a lot of the community is discussing right now on the topic of if this was an actual spur-of-the-moment break glass announcement, almost like Arrowhead saw the community pushback, they saw the player counts were down, they saw the review scores, and they thought, damn, we've got to break out the big guns. So they trotted out a Warhammer announcement to try to distract players from the real issues in and around the game. Was it a break glass situation? You know, there is a sliver of truth to that, or at least that's what I think, as does some of the community. But, you know, for now, let me hop in here with a couple of points that might help separate out this argument. First off is the matter of Games Workshop. You see, they are super specific and protective of their universe, and it isn't like Johan just called them up on the cell phone, said, yo, we need to do a collaboration, and they just instantly agreed to it all in the span of about 20 minutes. There were lawyers involved, contracts, negotiations, and all the trimmings. I mean, just ask Focus Entertainment how meticulous Games Workshop can be, as they are the studio that delivered Space Marine 2. There were designs, redesigns, meetings, this color is slightly off, no, that's not how a Tyranid leg should move discussions, along with, again, more meetings, approvals, and you know, you get the picture here. So it's more than likely that this HD2 40k thing has been in the works for a long time now. But based on the point that the Helldivers reveal trailer showed us absolutely nothing, and I mean zero, about this upcoming Warbond and collaboration, I think it's also safe to assume that Arrowhead may have just recently started their design phase, if they're even that far along. And so, you know, they wanted to get in on this Warhammer Skulls event hype. They got the green light from Sony and Games Workshop, and they kind of threw this announcement trailer together, which again, at least to me, sounded far more like a new player onboarding advertisement than an official legendary Warbond reveal. Of course, if we are talking legendary Warbonds and Helldivers 2, we need to call it like we see it. And the fact that the previous two that we've received have both been total ass. The Killzone and Halo ODST Warbonds not only were pricey, they added nothing of value to the game, delivering weapons that are underpowered and cannot be customized, while the armor sets, despite visually looking pretty good, are below average in terms of their armor passives. Now, I know a lot of players love Halo ODST, but, I'm kind of more of a Killzone fan myself, and seeing the franchise that I really loved get delivered like that was just brutal. Now, while it's true that the ODST suppressed weapons eventually got into a state that they could actually deliver some level of stealth, of course, after we, the community, battled it out with Arrowhead, they're still underpowered and mostly side grades to items we already had in our armories. So Arrowhead's track record of delivering player power fantasies when it comes to these legendary Warbonds has been pretty bad, made even worse by the fact that they seem dead set on not adjusting or buffing any of these items, along with us not being able to progress the weapons to unlock and customize them to our taste. Yeah, I do occasionally wear the Killzone armor for that flat resistance passive, and every now and then I'll slap on the accelerator rifle, which still needs a lot more ammo, but sometimes can be effective depending on what you're shooting at. But by and large, we've got much better standard armor sets and weapons that far exceed anything Killzone or ODST brought to the game. So understandably, there's serious player concerns about what Arrowhead will be able to deliver, what Games Workshop will allow, and what these items will actually perform like. Because if and when this Warhammer Warbond eventually arrives, I can see absolute meltdowns going on if all the primary weapons are light armor pen. Right as I was posting my last video, Arrowhead's now CCO, Johan, took to Twitter, dropping another message saying that the team heard our player feedback loud and clear and that they are having more meetings prioritizing issues like progression, balance, bugs, the Galactic War, and that they're working to improve their communications, which I found that last part kind of interesting. That's something we've been hearing since 2024, communications. And this always strikes me as odd because the studio has a dedicated comms team whose job is to communicate. I mean, at this point, over 2 years after launching the game, if communications are still not working well for you as a studio, maybe there's some internal issues that you need to handle. Anyways, many of you responded to Johan's tweet, me included, but I found this response from Cloud Plays kind of interesting, where he says, "I do not understand how it is difficult to just talk more. You have community management that have time to talk about every meal they have each day," which is true. And again, how is it that 2+ years later, Arrowhead is still trying to figure out and to manage their communications better? I mean, I don't know, man. That thing is just mind-blowing to me. And this now takes us up to the situation as a whole and what we saw kind of come boiling over yesterday. Instead of what we need, we saw Upscaler Support arriving. We saw a paid Warhammer Warbond announcement. More posts, little to no action. And of course, as expected, this riled up the player base once more because, as many of you called it, and trust me, I read your comments, yesterday felt like another day of Arrowhead not reading the room. Remember when we talked about timing earlier on in this video? Well, the timing was just severely off yesterday. We need a durable damage revert. We've got broken mechs. We've got bugs galore. The Galactic War and any real drive to participate in it is right now shot to hell. And instead of a patch to fix something, anything to do with some of the ongoing game's issues, instead of a buff patch to forgotten or underperforming items, or any sort of real kick in the pants to get the Galactic War kickstarted once more, we instead get Upscaler Support. We get an announcement for an announcement to the announcement that something will be coming later this year, and naturally that pissed off a lot of the player base. And trust me, I get it. Once I had a chance to shake off yesterday's IRL job barrage and kind of calm down and look it all over for myself, I didn't feel good about it either. On one side, we've got the game, the way it performs, and the players waiting for the studio to fix it. And instead, we get a graphical tweak that in reality is going to do very little for the game. And more importantly, we got offered up another paid Warbond. Now, when you step back and look at it, is Upscaler Support bad for the game? No. Will a 40k Warbond kill the game? No. but it certainly leaves a lot of questions lingering out there. But what we saw was this perfect storm of terrible timing, not delivering what players are really wanting, and so the anger was directed at things that really amount to nothing. Although offering up a paid Warbond, let's just say that it needed to be delayed. Now I understand the Skulls event and the timing there, but there should have been an alternate plan put in action. Instead, what we got is what we got, and you saw how things went down. But as always, I'm just going to keep doing what I do, holding Arrowhead accountable. I'm going to call them out when they don't deliver, and I'm going to praise them when they do, as well as offering up criticisms, critiques, and resolutions to many of the ongoing problems we, the players, actually experience. Now, some out there call it hate. They get mad at me and use my videos as a poster child for the toxic positivity to direct all their anger at. I respectfully disagree. Holding studios accountable is the only way to keep them honest and to keep pushing them to make the game better. And if we're going to stick to this vein of honesty right now, I've got to say, based on what we saw yesterday, there was a slightly meh first announcement and a totally tone-deaf dud of a second one. Now, if Arrowhead showed us that they were somehow evolving, say they went back into the game and opened up the kill zone and ODST gear for customization and buffed them up to reasonable power levels, then maybe, just maybe, we are looking at this Warhammer Warbond and saying, yeah, that has the potential to be pretty cool. But based on their track record of being 0 for 2, until I see something monumentally earth-shaking in terms of them changing their ways, the 40K collab has all the writings of being an overpriced, underpowered fantasy. But that's just my feelings on it all, especially the players' wants for the game and what we were instead shown yesterday. That just felt way off. And like many of you commented, paid Warbonds and Upscaler Support felt like a distraction. Drop me some feedback on anything Helldivers, and I'll of course do my best to respond. If you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. You can always support the channel and this video on mobile by taking advantage of the swipe to hype function. And before I go, a huge thanks goes out to all of our hardcore channel supporters. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.